As Rayo and the others made their way to the 11th floor, he couldn't help but wonder what would come next. He had been in a dungeon before but had never progressed past the 10th floor. When the group reached the 11th floor, they were shocked to find a swampy area. They approached with caution, but Rayo couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that they were being watched. He communicated with Frin, asking if he sensed the presence too. Frin agreed. "It seems like it's coming from that tall tree to our right, but there's nothing there," he said. Rayo looked but couldn't see anything either. He warned Rina to stay alert, as they were being watched. Just then, a figure darted across some nearby bushes. Rayo noticed it and fired a wind spell, knocking the figure over. It quickly got up and ran off, leaving Rayo hesitant. The figure had seemed humanoid, and for a moment, he wondered if there could be other adventurers trapped in the dungeon. He called out, asking if someone was there and offering help, but there was no response. As they passed a watery area, something tried to wrap its tail around Rio's leg. He noticed just in time and used a binding spell to hold the creature in place by its tail. He then grabbed the tail and dragged the creature out of the water, revealing a humanoid reptilian monster. Rina stood there, creeped out, as Rayo casually restrained the creature with another binding spell. The monster screamed, and suddenly, more of its kind emerged from the water, armed with spears. Frin quickly impaled the oncoming monsters with ice spears, but as he prepared to freeze the swamp, one of the creatures used the distraction to pull Rina into the water. Rayo leapt after her, grabbing her leg just as the creature turned to attack. Rayo, already a step ahead, used the momentum of the sudden stop to draw his sword and slash through the monster. Rayo and Rina emerged from the water, only to find Frin already engaging more of the creatures. Just then, before they could help Frin, they heard a whistling sound through the wind. They dodged as a spear landed where they had just been. More spears followed, but they couldn't see where they were coming from. Rina fired an arrow in the direction of one spear, and her arrow flew past the spear and hit something invisible. They realized the creatures could camouflage themselves. Rayo had had enough. Now certain there were no humans in danger, he unleashed a barrage of fireballs across the area, knocking everything down. Some of the monsters escaped into the water, but Frin froze the swamp solid, silencing the area once more. As they progressed through the next few floors, the monsters' tactics became more and more clever. On the 14th floor, they encountered a single creature, a floating, circular spear-like entity that patrolled the area. Rio's first instinct was to shoot it down, but the creature opened a hole in its body and fired a laser-like beam, destroying his spell. Rina tried next, but no matter how many arrows she fired, the creature blasted them all. Frin attempted a barrage of ice spears, but the creature countered every attack. They wondered how they would take down this creature, but just then, the creature went on the offensive, not waiting for them. They were now engaged in an exchange of deadly strikes. After a while, Rayo noticed a pattern. After firing its beam, the creature's holes took half a second to close. He communicated this to Frin, who launched another barrage of ice spears. As the creature destroyed the spears, Rayo appeared out of the smoke at high speed, placing his palm on the creature's open hole and unleashing a barrage of fireballs directly inside it. The creature let out a loud screech before falling to the ground, defeated. On the 15th floor, they entered a room with 3 figures standing in the center. As they approached, they realized the figures were clones of themselves. The clones smiled eerily before launching an attack. Rina found herself in a shootout with her clone, firing arrows that were matched shot for shot. Rayo was locked in an intense sword fight with his clone, their movements wild and unpredictable. Frin and his clone exchanged magical attacks, their strikes cold and deadly. Rayo began to pressure his clone, but the clone matched his every move. Rina, too, was evenly matched, while Frin's clone grew more aggressive, trying to land bites and scratches. But Frin's speed began to outpace his clone, and eventually, he tore it apart. Rina, noticing Frin's success, had an idea. She started firing ice arrows at her clone, realizing the clone didn't have that upgrade. She then fired more ice arrows, freezing her clone in place before shattering it. Reo, noticing the clone's limitations, started to switch between swordplay and magic simultaneously, overwhelming his clone and destroying it. The clones then combined into a grotesque, monstrous form, ready to take them all on at once. Reo charged with his sword, but the monster countered with a blade of its own. Frin and Rina attacked simultaneously, but the monster countered them one at a time. Realizing the monster couldn't handle multiple attacks at once, the trio surrounded it. Rina unleashed a flurry of arrows, Frin rained down ice spears, and Reo incinerated the monster with a barrage of fireballs. When the monster dissolved, Rina checked the item drop and found a spell book. She realized it could teach the user to mimic an opponent's moves. Though it wasn't suited for her, she thought it would be perfect for Reo. She let Reo know, and Frin agreed, telling him that this could be very useful, so Reo accepted the book. As he read through it, the text disappeared, and Rina explained that this was normal for such spell books. Reo was a bit curious to try out his new ability, but Rina advised against it. "We've been fighting non-stop since we entered the dungeon," she said. "There are still 5 more floors to go, and we can't afford to waste energy. Besides, the lower-level monsters will start respawning soon, then the other floors will follow as the boss is still alive. We need to clear the dungeon soon." Reo agreed, and Rina handed out healing potions to him and Frin. Reo thanked her, and Frin's voice echoed in her mind, thanking her as well. Rina paused, surprised. "What was that?" she asked. Reo smiled, remembering his own reaction when he first heard Frin's voice. "That was Frin," he said. Frin then explained, since he's gotten stronger, he can communicate with multiple people at once. Rina found this fascinating and asked if she could touch Frin. He agreed, and she marveled at how cool and soft his fur felt. When her hand brushed against the icy flames on his neck, she was surprised to find they didn't burn. Reo explained that Frin could control the temperature of his flames, making them hot or cool depending on how he felt about someone. Rina couldn't help but smile, her usual tough demeanor softening for a moment. The next few floors tested their teamwork and adaptability as the monsters tried even more various tactics to take them down, but as a team, they pulled through. On the 19th floor, they encountered a pack of shadowy wolves that could disappear into shadows and reappear elsewhere. The wolves attacked strategically, forcing Reo and Rina to defend themselves while Frin devised a plan. He froze the ground around Rina's feet, telling her that this would protect her from attacks while ensuring any wolves emerging from her shadow would be frozen. Frin then returned to Reo's shadow to prevent the wolves from using it as a means to attack Reo. Reo and Rina stood their ground, unleashing a barrage of arrows and spells. Eventually, Reo realized the wolves could only emerge from larger shadows. He destroyed everything that cast shadows, then lit up the room with fireballs, eliminating the wolves' hiding spots. With the room brightly lit, Reo and Rina finished off the remaining wolves with a barrage of attacks. Now, with the 19th floor cleared, only one challenge remained, the boss chamber. Reo, Frin, and Rina made their way to the entrance of the boss chamber, ready to face whatever awaited them.